Let me start by welcoming Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear friends. I would like to thank you all for joining the International Peace Institute, Middle East and North Africa, IPI MENA, in this event today. The world has experienced palpable upheavals in recent years and days, in fact. And we constantly find ourselves returning to the matter of the good governance and human rights as the Independent Commission on Multilateralism, ICM, which is part of International Peace Institute, that finds, and I quote, effective and legitimate governance works best within a participatory, inclusive system that allows all members of the community to give inputs, unquote. The human-centric challenges have given rise to tensions in belief in the value of democratic governance, creating, I quote, trust deficit, unquote, permitting political forces to arise that are polarizing democratic societies. As such, the trial of good governance, democracy, and human rights are the values that need to be enshrined into a framework that is upheld by both national or supranational bodies to ensure the goal for sustainable development and durable peace is met. The regional integration framework facilitates and works in tandem to embody these values, as it not only provides a common consensus among neighbors to cooperate, but enables homegrown solutions to be innovated. This ensures organic structures and the reinforcing institutions are able to sow the seeds of good governance with success. So the question is, how do all these components come together? Education is the connecting factor. Education that fills, but also travels beyond the four walls of classroom. Ingraining the values of a culture of peace through the arts, intercultural as well as interfaith dialogue and exchanges, etc., will equip citizens with a deeper understanding and appreciation of building tolerance and resilience in the solving and management of conflicts. Educating citizens on the ways they can practice civil responsibilities will teach them how to express, exercise, and contribute to democratic processes as a human right is an important piece of the big picture. It is a guaranteed pathway to promote the universal values of the culture of peace and good governance, while the backing of regional body ensures that sovereign nations abide to these greater commitments. My friends, ladies and gentlemen, democracy is resilient, but we, as a global community, have continuously came up. Democracy is resilient, but we, as a global community, have continuously come up to the same crossroads. We are at a critical juncture of history's timeline into a new era. The importance of cooperation and integration as a region has never been more pertinent. Neither has it been for youth as the agents of peace and change to lead the way. The International Peace Institute pledges, not only today, but every time, our availability to explore partnerships with all concerned stakeholders and key players in our multilateral system to transform this sort of think tanking into do tanking, and deliver to states, countries, and nations the needed tools and templates that they can turn into homegrown roadmaps and plans. Without further ado, I'm delighted and honored to share the floor today with this distinguished panel of strong advocates of human rights and regional integration, whom I'm happy also to call my friends and partners. In sharing our experiences, lessons learned, and visions for the future, I hope we will reignite the embers of lasting peace and sustainable development. Thank you very much. I will start by giving the floor to our key speaker, my friend, Mr. Abdelbast bin Hassin. He's the president of the Tunis-based Arab Institute of Human Rights in Tunisia. Abdelbast, you have the floor, my friend.
Sabah al-Khair. Good morning. Thank you, dear friend Nejib, for giving me the opportunity to address this distinguished group of experts. My name is Abdelbast bin Hassan. I'm the president of the Arab Institute for Human Rights, a regional organization based in Tunis. I'm also a member of the high-level committee on the futures of education of UNESCO. The Arab Institute for Human Rights, a very brief presentation. The Arab Institute for Human Rights is a regional organization founded in 1989 by the Arab Organization for Human Rights, the Arab Lawyers Union, the Tunisian League for Human Rights, it's an institute focusing on the promotion of human rights through policy reforms, capacity building activities, research, and advocacy. We are focusing also on reforming the school system in the Arab region. The Arab Institute for Human Rights has a board of directors composed of the three founding organizations and UNESCO, UNICEF, the High Commission for Human Rights in Geneva, the UNFPA, UNDP, and also some other organizations. I really appreciate inviting me to be part of this discussion about integration. And I really also appreciate my discussions with my friend Nejib, and also the event concept note, because it focuses on this relationship between regional integration and values. Regional integration, democracy, human rights, and solidarity. And I think that this is a very important starting point to really rethink our relation to the issue of integration, because in the last decades, regional integration, I think, was considered in major times under a kind of ideological vision, under also ideological slogans. It was not about values, about democratic values, about solidarity, about human rights values, about citizenship values, but it was mainly about reaching economic interests and also ideological and political interest. And I think that we failed, we failed for the moment to achieve this regional integration because we didn't include in this reflection issues like, for example, policies, regional policies based on human rights, on citizenship, and on solidarity. We didn't also include issues about the mechanisms of governance, and also we didn't include issues about the sustainability of our integration and our relationships. I think that we need really, and this is my first point, I think that we need really to move from this kind of vague ideological approach of integration to another integration based on the realistic objectives, on realistic policies based, of course, on mutual interests, but at the same time based on trying to achieve governance, democracy, human rights, and inclusion for all in the MENA region. I think that we need really to to achieve a kind of paradigm shift to include an important concept in our reflection about integration, the concept of common good, to consider that in this region we are really belonging to same civilization, a very I think important civilization, and we need really to refocus on the civic legacy of our region. And I think that we need really to reintegrate this civic approach in our common existence in this region. This is my first point. My second point is that in the region, in the MENA region, we are in a real important historical juncture. I think it's a very complex situation where at the same time we have significant human and natural resources in the region. We have also many demands from young people, from different social categories, from women, from minorities. We have a lot of demands for political reforms, for economic and social reforms, for giving young people opportunities, achieve social and economic equity and inclusion. We have at the same time all these demands, but we have also this dark side of the situation where a lot of crises are rising. Like, for example, the problems of poverty, exclusion, structural economic and social difficulties, absence of reform projects, conflicts, and colonialism. We have, for example, we are producing in the region more than half of the refugee people in the world, and because of the conflicts, I think that we are in this very important situation where at the same time we are suffering from all these crises, democratic crisis, political crisis, social, economic, and cultural crisis. But at the same time, we have this rising demands everywhere in the region. And also we have also new situations and new demands to address issues like, for example, climate change, like the new technology developments. What we will do with this kind of dualistic situation. I think that what is missing to address this situation, the starting point, I think, is to introduce human rights as part of our reflection about our future. A lot of countries in the region are trying to introduce some human rights issues in their legislations and policies and some human rights practices. But I think this is not enough. At this moment, we need really to respond to these important questions. Is human rights part of our civilizational transforming dynamics? Is human rights part of our thinking about our future and the future of the new generations? And I think that we need really to respond and to work together to consider that this is a real starting point for our reflection about our societies and about also about all kind of integration reflections. And if we really want to achieve sustainable development, if we want really to address the problems and the indicator of sustainable development processes in our countries, I think that we need really to take this historical decision and to consider human rights as part of our thinking and our part of transforming our societies. And if we really make this choice, I think that we need first to develop human rights systems in our countries. And I mean by human rights systems to reform our constitutions, to introduce a human rights-based approach in our legislations, to build institutions that can really develop our accountability systems and our governance systems, and to recognize the role of civil society and media freedoms, to reform our policies to include peoples, to include women, to include young people, to include children, to include disabled people, to include all minorities. We need also to consider that equality for all is one of our main choices, and to give the opportunity to all social categories to be part of the decision-making processes. I think that are the main issues that we really want to develop together. This is a common responsibility. I think also that we need to continue our reflection with main regional and sub-regional bodies in the MENA region, like the Arab League, the Maghreb Union, the Gulf States Council. I think that we need really to continue our reflection in our common work to introduce human rights, democratic issues in their structures, in their bylaws. I think that it's a real it's a important moment to introduce human rights in these major bodies, because these bodies are responsible of implementing all the integration issues. At the end, I think that this is my main point, how to make human rights as a main choice for the region. And I think that education, human rights-based education, is a real entry point to develop our societies. This is my main points, and thank you.
Shukran, Abdul Basit, thank you so much. You did, in fact, touch our minds and hearts by first identifying where we failed to achieve the regional integration. And you said it because we did not include human rights, democracy, and other values into our visions and strategies. And not only you depicted the facts, but you also gave an insight on how to fix that. Thank you so much. We, of course, noted we have to refocus on civic legacy of our region. And as you all know, despite the fact that this region has all elements that could bring in a proper regional integration, it remains, unfortunately, as Abdul Basit underlined, the most disintegrated region. So maybe statements like that linked to acts and facts and strategies will get this region out of the unfortunate disintegration. Now I will also give the floor to my friend, Muhandis Engineer Ali Ahmed Dirazi, the chairperson of the National Institution for Human Rights in Bahrain. And on your behalf, all, I'd like to congratulate him, as few moments ago or 2 hours ago, he launched with his team and his partners in Bahrain and abroad the strategy or the action plan for the period 2022-2025. Congratulations, Engineer Ali, and all the best in your endeavors. And thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and thanks for the International Peace Institute and for you, Mr. Nejib, for inviting us and giving us the floor to speak with our colleagues. And I'm very glad to see all those who are participating in this session. I will not make my speech long, but first of all, I would like maybe to speak a little bit about our institute. The National Institute of Human Rights in Bahrain being established in 2009, and we are based on Paris protocols. Our launching our strategy today was based on let's say, 4 bases, but those are not limited. Those bases are for the coming 3 years. First of them, looking at the impact of the corona virus pandemic, and especially on the economical effect that it happened, and it might also affect especially the lowest part, the poorest people, by, if there is a bad economical impact, immediately it will go to the lower class, and what kind of effect happened to it, and how we can help this part in our country. This is the first one. Second one is, which our colleagues spoke about, is the education of the culture of the human rights this education of culture, human rights will continue work, and it will be part, it is not only the part of this strategy, but this is the part of the coming, as we rightly spoke about, even integration of these regions, that it won't happen without having a proper education to the public and to all citizens living in MENA region. But focusing on, from our side, we are talking about the human rights, culture, splitting it, and having a proper root inside the society. Then the understanding, proper understanding of human rights will happen, and then a proper result will appear better, not only from the authorities, but from the society itself. Well, our second base is the achieving of equal treatment for the genders. We have done a lot in Bahrain for having equal treatment for the women as well as for men. But as we always say, this aim will not be 100% achieved in a click of a button. So this is one of also one of our mandate. Everyone should have a proper treatment and high a temple standard of health. Though, you know, within the pandemic, Bahrain has have a very successful story in fighting the virus and splitting the vaccines to everyone who is living in Bahrain, no matter whether he is citizens or expatriates. The vaccine was available for everyone and anyone, and it was free. So we had a very successful story on that part, but that part will not happen not only on the pandemic, but on the entire health insurance, entire health care. It requires a lot of work, and it requires a lot of integration between all the authorities as well. So this is what was happening today. I was very busy on that strategy and launching that strategy. But we go back to our main topic of this session. In MENA region, we, as our friend Abdel Basit bin Hassan says, that we really have all the bases and all the element for the integration among all the society and the authorities. But unfortunately, we don't use it properly. Though in Bahrain and in Gulf, we have a very successful stories also in GCC countries on the integrations, but still what has been achieved, though if you compare it to the other regions and other cooperations among the other authorities, you don't find like what we have here, but still the aim to be much better. And as I said, it's not only, we don't have to work only on the authorities and on the logistics, but on also the people who's living in this region, for their better integration and better use of the elements available among our region. Unfortunately, it's not to the level that we require. But the achievement of the International Peace Institute by having such sessions will of course help, because kind of this type of round tables will always help to bring bring better understanding between all and each other. So I would like again to thank Mr. Nejib for inviting me here, and thank you all.
Thank you, my friend Ali Dirazi, for highlighting the priorities of your institutions in the next 3 years. And I'm sure this agenda is also subject to further and additional reforms, as you have stated, the openness of during your deliberations to new ideas, and I appreciated the participation of the key ministries from the Ministry of Justice, the key government institutions and civil society. Thank you also for stressing the need for education for human rights, and of course promoting the human rights culture, and putting shedding more lights on the need for gender equity. And of course, needless to say how successful Bahrain was in tackling the COVID-19 challenge. And you also highlighted the need to globalize or make the health care more comprehensive in the country. We appreciate of course, the achievements of the regional integration in the GCC, or this sub-region. And as you said, these achievements call for more to be done, and maybe emulate that to the whole MENA region with all its important and vital geographical dimension, the Mediterranean, the Sub-Sahara, and further to the Asian and other dimensions. Let me now give the floor to Madame Miriam Sfer, Director of the Arab Institute of Women at the Lebanese American University, Lebanon. Madame Sfer, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to see many partners that we've collaborated with, and I'm happy to be with you. Just a bit about the Institute before I jump into my talk and the points I'd like to raise. We're an institute that was founded in 1973 at the Lebanese American University. We work at the intersection of academia and activism, and we've been there since 1973, as I said. The institute was founded to honor Aliou's heritage of being an all-girls school and later on college. So we work on very many thematic areas, and we move from the premise that gender is intersectional, and we try as much as we can to cover very many thematic areas related to human rights, gender equality, gender justice, security sector reform. We just finished a project on parental leave and the importance of parental leave that entailed doing research and coming up with a change in policy on the level of the university, which is the first university in Lebanon that will raise the maternity leave for women and endorse a paternity leave of 10 days, etc. I'm also very happy to see Dr. Abdel Basit. We've worked jointly with them on a training, a regional training actually, with the office in Lebanon, where we worked on strengthening the skills of female activists and media professionals and bloggers that are working in the Arab region, mostly young women, on the mechanisms to protect women and advance and promote human rights through specialized training. So we did trainings and awareness sessions, and we're hoping to do another training this year, funding permitting, and we will find the funding. And we'll be naming this this training session in the name of Asma Khidr. We're hoping, that passed away not too long ago, a very famous gender rights activist from Jordan. So if I am to jump in, I'm also very happy to see OHCHR. We just yesterday screened two documentaries that were done within the context of a project that we're working with OHCHR on women peace builders in Lebanon at the time of the war and at the time of the Lebanese Revolution. So given that I'm based in Lebanon, I will try and be as quick as I can, not to take my time, and highlight the situation of women in Lebanon very briefly and talk about one successful initiative that I think came out of a very bad or very horrible incident, namely the Beirut blast, and how coalitions and how it's important to build coalitions on the level of feminist groups and the importance of having an intersectional lens and a gender lens in everything that we do. So basically, as you all know, Lebanon does not perform well on the level of gender equality. We suffer from personal status codes that basically discriminate against women in matters of marriage, divorce, child custody, and inheritance. We have laws that criminalize domestic violence, but the law is not enough, and we need to fix this law and make it counter all forms of gender-based violence. Unfortunately, as you might well know, we are approaching elections, and there was a collective effort on the part of all feminist groups and women's rights groups to call for a quota in parliament and in the cabinet, and they are unfortunately absent on the level of Lebanon, and they were actually refused. And even though women comprise 50% of the Lebanese society, we have only 6 women out of the 128 members of parliament, and recently we only have 1 woman. Previously we had 6 out of the 24 now, 30 before, ministers in the cabinet that are women. And this reflects really a dismal female participation and representation, and I think this is echoed in a lot of the countries, neighboring countries as well. But like, I don't think we as Lebanon fare well at all. And it's true that there are a number of women, and previously the 6 women that were in government, during that time we had the highest number of women in the history of the country. But unfortunately, even though I think the gender card was played maybe to appease the demands of women's groups, there was no real commitment on the level of their presence, and they did not work in favor of gender rights. And if we have like women's presence there, and if they're not holders of a feminist agenda, really sometimes does not make a difference. So, and also family structures are important, state institutions that often deny women rights on the level of the public and private sphere, the issue of nationality that's common along other countries, sexual and reproductive health and rights that are often ignored, the kafala system that basically discriminates greatly against foreign domestic workers. And as a result of the October 17 revolution that took place in Lebanon, all those demands were demands that were called for on the level of the feminist groups. On the streets, the demands were intersectional, and the rights of marginalized groups were taken into consideration. Now, if I move on to talk about the port explosion and what happened as a result of the port explosion, the port explosion coupled with the economic breakdown and the global pandemic basically led to a lot of loss in terms of livelihoods. As you know, they were destroyed, and unfortunately the recovery plan on the level of the Beirut port failed to employ a gender lens. So around 52 organizations in Lebanon came together and drafted a charter of demand, and this charter of demand was supported by UN Women, and the group and activists on the ground basically agreed upon a shared understanding of the importance of gender in recovery, and the importance that this recovery plan is basically, it takes into the account the disproportionate effect and impact that this blast would have on the most vulnerable and marginalized groups, including women and girls and all marginalized groups, especially that the area that the blast took place in was an area where a lot of marginalized groups were living. So basically, on the level of introducing a gender lens, the feminist charter called for we need to conduct a gender assessment to see what are the needs and priorities there. We need to ensure that women's representation and leadership is included on the decision-making bodies that are making the decisions. We need to provide food security and shelter and sustainable livelihood to these women who are residents of that area and the women affected, and not just the women and marginalized groups. We need to prevent and respond to violence against women and girls, especially in the area. The area was badly lit, overcrowded. There were no available wash facilities, and violence against women escalated. Also on the level of aid and sextortion, this was there were so many cases of that were not recorded. And basically, to ensure that access to health services and sexual and reproductive health and rights were available, simply because 50% of the hospitals in the Beirut area were basically were destroyed. So basically what happened was that this Charter of Demand did not stay a Charter of Demand. It became a platform, and after the Beirut blast, this platform now is working on issues related to the importance of women's political participation, the importance of having a non-sexist discourse when talking about women's representation in politics and women's representation in other aspects. And this platform now is calling, and it's a coalition, as I said, of 52 organizations that are working. So basically, the important element of it is that it was created as a result of the Beirut blast, and it's continuing to basically address issues related to gender, where collectively women are represented, or the voices of feminists and women's rights groups are represented. There are many recommendations that we need to talk about. Of course, it's important that we look at human rights in terms of a holistic package and not a pick and choose, not in a pick and choose manner whereby we look at human rights and decide on who wants to be included in this broad human rights perspective. And of course, we currently now want the feminist perspective in the cabinet, and we hope that this translates into policies, and it means that we can reform a lot of discriminatory policies that have been there for a long time, and we try as much as we can to push for the representation of women in terms of the parliament, in terms of municipalities. And basically, I personally think that on the level of Lebanon, we have so many strategies that are there. We have so many action plans that are there. What we need is basically its implementation, making sure that those strategies are not just there in place. We need to make sure that the mechanisms for implementation are there, and we need to work collectively on trying to ensure that gender justice and a gender lens is taken into consideration on the level of a lot of aspects. I also want to talk on the level of, and I personally think you were talking about homegrown solutions. This was our homegrown solution in terms of like prioritizing gender rights. Of course, the youth is a very important element in that, and we need to, of course, ascertain and make sure that the media and the role of media and the way media is representing gender rights is in a fair manner. We are seeing, I don't know if you're following, a lot of discriminatory episodes related to gender rights, related to violence against women. If you're following a lot of the incidents of violence that are happening on national TV, and the importance role that social media also is playing in showcasing the discriminatory attitude, and in also allowing people to give their opinion about gender rights as if it's an opinion and another opinion. I personally think we need to basically address all the strategies from a gender perspective, and to make sure that there are mechanisms of implementation of these strategies, and also to incorporate a holistic approach vis-a-vis human rights, and not a divisible approach simply because human rights are not divisible. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Miriam. It's a very, very comprehensive picture about the sad situation in Lebanon, as you referred to the most dramatic incident, which is the port explosion linked to the economic breakdown in Lebanon, plus the pandemic. Despite that, we have no doubt about the high level of resilience of your country people and your citizens to overcome all these challenges. And we're very glad that you, despite all that, you continue your work, and very important work. And you highlighted your focus research and training, and glad that you also highlighted your partnership with the Arab Institute of Human Rights. And here I call you also look with my colleagues for how we could join IPI in think tanking, do tanking, as you highlighted. I know that women quotas have been the preoccupation of all women, even during my 8-year tenure as a UN spokesman in Beirut. And hopefully with your efforts, you can, men and women, overcome this challenge. Thank you for your important recommendations, and I would like you, if you don't mind, to share with us your the ideas that you have shared now in terms of that will, of course, be useful for us to follow up with you on what could be done in the future, not only on the integration overarching scheme, but also on some important and pressing issues regarding your country. I now move to my sister in Cameroon. I give the floor to Dr. Pierrette Esama, Program Coordinator at Pan-African University Institute for Governance, Humanities, and Social Science in Cameroon. Dr. Pierrette, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I hope you're getting me. Thank you very much. First of all, I'm very honored.
Yes, we are.
Very honored to have been invited in this talk for the International Peace Institute. I am a senior lecturer in law and program coordinator at the Pan-African Union University created by the African Union Commission, Institute of Governance, Humanity, and Social Sciences. There are 5 universities under the rector. There are 5 institutes under the rectorate of the Pan-African University. There is one that is in Cameroon, Governance, Humanities, and Social Sciences, one in Nigeria, one in Algeria, another one in Kenya, and the last one is in South Africa. This one in Cameroon is specifically devoted to governance, humanities, and social sciences. And for the time being, we run 2 main programs, a program in governance and regional integration, and a program in translation and interpretation. So I'm coordinating the programs in governance and regional integration. And we have as core courses, we have human rights, we have of governance and regional integration. And in the university, we have only 2 levels, master's level and PhD levels. I would like to share with all of you all protocols duly observed on the current state of governance and human rights in Africa, and its impact on African efforts for regional integration. The regional integration is the process by action at the political level, sociological level, economical level, trade, and security. And through this system, they put up, they create supranational organs, and they generally have intergovernmental decision making. Yes.
Could you please repeat the last sentence, because we can't hear that, couldn't hear it.
Yes, I was saying that regional integration is generally operationalized
Hello, are we, can you hear Pierrette?
No, she completely cut.
Necessary decisions.
Yeah.
Now, if we have to discuss about governance and human rights in Africa, as far as governance is concerned, which is the system by which life in society is regulated and the policies and how they are implemented, we see that many states in Africa claim to be democracies, more or less. Many countries also have a presidentialist system where the office of the president of the republic is really anything else. That is, they make orders to the parliament. Sometimes even they command the judicial system. And then we also have many military governments. And for the last year or the last few months, I think everybody is aware of the coups that have happened in Mali, in Guinea-Bissau, and in Burkina Faso. So we have many military, because they call themselves transitional bodies, but it's the military that is governing. So these are the forms of government that we have in Africa. But I also said we have democratic governments also. And if we know that governments aim at developing or ensuring the well-being of citizens, that is promoting their basic human rights, we can see that these coups, there is growing insatisfaction on the part of the population. And this is why we have coups, this is why we have strikes, this is how we have, why we have political unrest in some countries, like we have in Ethiopia, we also have in Cameroon, and we also have terrorism, and we have transnational terrorism. For example, we have this Boko Haram, we have Al-Qaeda for Maghreb, and this has been caused by hunger, poverty, unemployment, inflation, and really lagging behind as far as development is concerned. And whether in turn or as a result, or whether it is what prompts this state of affairs, we have blatant violations of human rights all over the continent. And when I say all over, it doesn't mean all the countries, but most countries, be it civil or political, because when elections are rigged, of course, the population is prevented from really expressing its will. We also have issues with freedom of speech, because in many dictatorial regimes, you are not free, the press is not free to express itself, to give its opinion. We also have violations of human rights, socioeconomic and cultural human rights, where you have poverty, the right to housing, right to health, hunger, many diseases. Yet, most African countries have ratified most of the international human rights instruments that exist. But also they have ratified the African Charter of Human and People's Rights and several other regional and sub-regional instruments, because as we know, in Africa, we have the African Union, which is the continental body, the regional body, regional integration body. But then we also have sub-regional gatherings, such as ECOWAS for West Africa. We have we have ECOWAS, we have CEMAC for Central Africa, we have SADC for Southern Africa, we have the Arab Maghreb Union. All of these are there to help implement regional integration at sub-regional level before we talk about the continental level, which is under the African Union. So I was saying that the African Union has adopted many human rights instruments, among which the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and its protocols on the rights of women, rights of the child. There are many other declarations and specific conventions on democracy and elections, in that ECOWAS, they have a strong legal framework on democracy and elections. But as you can see, it doesn't suffice to have instruments, even if those instruments are ratified. But there's an issue of ratification of AU instruments, because there are many instruments, but countries do not ratify so that they come into force. And even when they ratify, even when they come into force, as we can see with all ECOWAS, West African Economic Community, they have instruments for elections, for democracy, but yet we still have military people taking up power. We have coup. So the issue here is with the coming into force and implementation. So we can say that there are shortcomings in diplomacy in Africa, at the regional level. There are shortcomings of the law when there is no or little political will, because all of this, there must be a political will for human rights instruments to be implemented, for agreements to be implemented. And I will still come back to that example from West Africa. They are the best sub-regional in terms of implementation, in terms of having a court of law where citizens can go, because you can go to CEMAC. CEMAC Court of Law is merely about interpreting CEMAC Treaty, that is Central Africa sub-regional grouping. But with ECOWAS, they have a court of law, an international court of law, supranational court of law, that can entertain complaints from citizens of human rights violations. But even if they have gone that step ahead, we see that this is the region where, the sub-region where we have this coup where the military takes up power. So at bottom of it, at the end of the day, the issue is that of political will of the specific president, the specific people who govern the country. What is now the impact of this governance and human rights in Africa and this political will that we're discussing? The impact on African efforts for regional integration. What happens is that with hunger, with poverty, many countries would now try to solve their own issues, and they don't really engage with other countries as far as regional integration is concerned. For example, I'll take an example. If they don't have road infrastructures in their own countries, they wouldn't think about building cross-border roads or transportation units or infrastructure. So when there is poverty, they tend to turn inward and try to solve their own issues. So there are challenges as far as political will is concerned. There are some people who want to cling on power, others who are ready to pass on power after elections, after mandates. After 2 or 3 mandates at most, and implement and at sub-regional and regional level. There is challenge in the work of the sub-regional institutions, such as human rights commissions and courts. There are issues mostly based on funding. And we've had this issue with the African Union that has been founded for years by the Chinese government, in many respects, not in all, but in many respects. So states are not paying their dues to the regional or sub-regional organizations so that these organizations should function. And then these challenges in funding also caused by the level of poverty. Although the question we may ask is that, how can we be talking about poverty in a continent that has manpower, as we know in Africa, country with so many resources? This is a question that I don't know, maybe economists could answer, but as a legal mind, I may not have the answer. And then, as I said, the main challenge is funding regional integration, funding institutions, and then political will. Whereas at the same time, that is, when sufficient efforts are not made towards more regional integration, towards giving regional integration organs more power, more impetus to work. At the same time, regional integration is part of the solution. It is part of the solution, be it at national level or at regional level. Why? Because it cannot be overemphasized that if you want to go fast, we have this saying in Africa, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. That is, when we have concerted efforts at the regional level, we can really attain our objectives. If we still take the example of road infrastructure, if we want to connect Africa by road, it is through concerted efforts. You have to imagine the roads that you want for Africa. You have to imagine that this road must live from this country to that other country. There is a project in West Africa with ECOWAS. They have a project like that. They have started in some countries to build those roads that will link their region. So you have to work together. And then even to get the funding, the necessary finances to carry out these huge projects, when you go together, it's not like when a country is trying to do it on its own. And then we will also think about the truth that we have in this universe as where humankind lives. We are all humans where we live, and which is expressed by the South African concept of Ubuntu, which I think many of you have heard about, which is
Dr. Osama, we are losing you, unfortunately. Hello? Maybe you should switch off your camera to keep all the data to your audio. I think we lost her, and that's quite unfortunate, despite the very important elements of her statement. I will maybe give her the floor afterwards. Let me try to move now to the last speaker, and not least, Madam Ansam Abiyashi. She's the Regional Gender Advisor at the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. She's based in Lebanon. Madam Ansam, you have the floor. Tafadali. Please unmute yourself. Your audio is not working.
I think it's your headphones.
It's okay now. It's okay now.
It's okay now? Okay. So before introducing the organization and myself.
There is a small problem of your, still a small problem with your audio.
Is it?
Oh, yes. Okay.
We have some.
Hello.
Let me check another student. Back to you, Mr. Najib.
No, still not clear.
It's not clear now?
Not really. How's that received? Dalia and Eliza, please tell us.
Can you capture this?
There's a bit of an echo.
The echo maybe by someone who is maybe if you can mute the other mics. Is it better now?
No.
Let me make another
Sorry for that. I hope we'll resume very soon. Madam Ansam.
Yes. Is it better now?
You go ahead. I don't think it's the best quality, but you go ahead. We cannot.
Okay, so if you can hear me, let me start to thank the organizers Yeah, no?
No. Dr. Esama, we lost you. If you can mute you or disconnect your camera and yes, and continue while waiting for Madame Ansam to fix her audio challenges. Yes, Dr. Esama, if you can conclude very quickly because we already went over time. Unmute yourself, please. And disconnect the camera, it's better.
Okay. If I close the camera.
Yeah, then we'll have better quality of sound, of audio.
Okay. Okay, I was already at the conclusion. With the African saying on Ubuntu, which means I am because you are, because we are. That is part of solving the governance and human rights issues that we have in Africa, regional integration. So if states could have a political will to commit more on regional integration and to keep with good governance and the rule of law, things will be better in all respects, that is civil and political rights, socio-economic and cultural rights. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Dr. Esama. Of course, you have unveiled the sad aspects of our dear continent, mainly the recent coups in many African countries, and what's the future of the continent if these coups are still looming over the future and ambitions of many of the whole the peoples of Africa. And you also referred to another plague, which is the transnational terrorism that is affecting many parts of the continent, in addition to, and you linked both terrorism to the poverty, hunger, and other challenges in the country. The unfortunate blatant violations of human rights in the continent remain a big source of worry and concern. You also shed some light on the already existing institutions like the African Union, which is an ambitious project, and its sub-regional bodies from ECOWAS to SADC to AMU, but you also highlighted the challenges in the special bodies, mainly the ones related to human rights. Of course, Africa will not go far if it goes alone, and I think the goodwill should inhibit all the partners of Africa. We know that it has to go together with the international community to fix those challenges. And I'm pretty sure that the new generations in Africa are getting rid of the legacies of colonialism and occupation that has unfortunately continued to paralyze the potential of this young continent, given also the fact that the potential of the youth in that in our continent are rather part of the solution rather than part of the problem as it is depicted by some. Thank you so much again, and I'd like to keep in touch with you because we need to, and I appreciate the fact that you also included the AMU in your picture or your insight, and let's work together on what you are doing there. Now I'll try to move back to the Regional Gender Advisor at the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Madame Ansam Abiyashi. I hope the audio is fixed now. Now we cannot hear you at all. We cannot hear you. No, no sound at all. Let's open the floor for some questions or remarks while waiting for our colleague from the High Commission for Human Rights to link back. Any comments? Any questions? Let me put a question to our key speaker, my friend Abdel Basit. As you have heard from either Lebanon or Cameroon or from Bahrain, there is a need or a call for further interaction between the bodies and your, I would say, a regional institute. Could you please give some insight about how you advise all of us to join you and work together on not only regional integration as an overarching project only, but also how to tailor a kind of realistic and some approach linked to the aspirations of the current and future generations in the MENA region. Thank you, Bas.
Thank you. I think that we need really to focus on what Miriam and other speakers mentioned, the issue of the holistic approach, the human rights holistic approach. I think that in our region, there are many initiatives working on many issues, like, for example, the protection of human rights, promotion of human rights and citizenship education. I think that the scene of human rights scene is really progressing in our region, and many civil society and national institutions and sometimes also governmental institutions are trying to build this kind of needed common responsibility. I think what is missing, I think that what is missing is this holistic approach, is to consider human rights not just a tool that we introduce sometimes in some occasions, but it's about an approach that will be embedded in the policies, in our public policies, in our legislations. Human rights as a holistic approach that will inspire our work on reforming institutions, administration, reforming the education systems, the health systems, family laws and family programs. I think that this is what is missing in our work. There are many organizations in the region working on trying to educate on this holistic approach, on this integrated approach, like, for example, the High Commission for Human Rights, many civil society organizations, national institutions. But I think that we need now really, we need a real regional dialogue. We need really to start a regional dialogue, an inclusive regional dialogue, where decision makers, regional and sub-regional bodies, civil society organizations, media people, and also the private sector. All the representatives of these bodies will sit together and will develop together an inclusive program for this region. An inclusive program considering that human rights in its integrated and interdependent meaning will be part of our national, sub-regional, and regional policies and the programs. This is the first one. Second, I think that we need to work together on developing indicators to measure the real progress on achieving the indicators of the development programs. We need, for example, to see how people are included in different programs to achieve these national and regional development programs. Third, I think that we need to integrate human rights education in all life levels, and starting from the preschool to the to schools, to the informal sector, trying to make human rights education, human rights culture as part of our society. But this is the approach of the Arab Institute for Human Rights. We are based in Tunisia, in a very popular neighborhood. We have our branches in Lebanon, in Egypt, in Morocco, and other countries. And we have this holistic approach that we need really to put people together and to invest in Arab citizens, on all citizens and all people in the region. I just want to mention that we have kind of civic culture in our some historic moments. In the 19th century, many Arab reformers tried to say that our societies, the destiny of our society is not to be just considered as violent societies, as extremist societies. We have many religious, cultural, social meanings and ideas that can build some civilized societies where inclusion, democracy can be part of our policies. In the 70s and 60s, the Arab countries invested in the public education, invested in the literacy for all people, in family reforms, in economic reforms, and trying to build the modern societies and modern states, the rule of law. There were many trials to adopt this civic approach to our societies. What is needed now, I think, what people are waiting in all Arab societies or MENA societies, they are waiting for real projects for their society, where there are inclusion, social and economic equity, where there are free elections, real inclusion for women, children, and young people, where we can try to work on facing all the climate changes, pollution. I think that this is what people are waiting, and we cannot achieve this if we don't really adopt human rights as a civic choice. There are many people who are working with us on this. What is needed is just to transform this on real sustainable programs, inclusive programs for all.
Thank you, my friend Bassett. That's really to the point, and I wouldn't call that ambitious. It is realistic, and of course, it's doable. We need more political will from, I'm sure, your partners. I remember, I have to thank you again for that important visit I had to your institute in Tunisia, in Tunis, in that popular area, which makes human rights down to earth. And of course, appreciated interacting with your people over there, with your radio, and the facilities that you are making available for even for victims of violence and abuses and all that. And I'd like to congratulate you and your team on that, and wish you all the best. Now I'll try to return to Madame Ansam to give the High Commissioner for Human Rights the last word, and we're eager to hear you, Madam. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you properly.
Oh, great. I'm so sorry for this technical issue. It's always happened, even if we tested earlier. But before introducing the work, I mean, I will try to be very short. And I would like to thank the organizers for inviting OHCHR to this very important meeting and topic. It's very important for us as OHCHR, as this region hosting a big regional hub. It's the Doha Center for Training and Documentation in Qatar. And we are here also as a regional office for Middle East and North Africa. We have a big office in Beirut, covers 10 countries. Out of them, 6 are the Gulf countries in terms of monitoring the human rights situation. So actually, it's what your topic is very relevant to our daily work, let us say. So thanks for inviting us, and also I would like to introduce my assignment, as even if I'm the gender advisor for the whole region, but I'm the team leader for the GCC countries, where we are doing the human rights monitoring on a daily basis with a team. So I'm so happy to be here, and I will not go through what colleagues already talked about. I'm so happy that good governance in the region is totally linked to the human rights. But I would like to raise 2 issues here. The first is that the importance of regional and sub-regional bodies in the whole policies in the world. I mean, it's become more important than an individual state, or even at the global level. So they are now the bodies that heavily we rely on in promoting the human rights, protecting human rights, and also in the interpretation of the Human Rights Declaration, the universal one, into the level of the states, and how those with common cultural and economical and all the aspects that they have in common, strengthening each member of these regional bodies. So the bodies are those regional, sub-regional bodies are very important, and also in helping each member of these bodies to push for growth and speed its path to reach their agenda of development, for instance, Agenda 2030. So we can see that how this integration, regional integration, will help to achieve those goals. Also, I mean, the GCC as intergovernmental sub-regional body is very important for the whole region in MENA, Middle East and North Africa. They are the members of the Arab League, and then they have this weight of decision making with this bigger regional organization. So having this this body is not only important for the region, also for the world, because it represents, like, you know, a main donor for the humanitarian crisis recently. It's not only in the region, also for the world, in other parts of the world. Contributions that are coming from this regional body or the countries in this region is very crucial to the humanitarian work. For that reason, it's like, you know, good governance and is a milestone for having effective and active contribution, and also having human rights within the good governance mainstream is crucial. So good governance from a human rights perspective is a process whereby public institutions conduct public affairs and manage public resources with full realization of human rights. And in doing that good governance, it should include areas of full respect for human rights, rule of law, effective and participation that's been mentioned by colleagues like Mr. Abdel Basit, Mariam Sfair, and all the speakers before me about who are those that need to be participate in decision makings, multi-actor partnerships with all the private sector, civic society that also mentioned. So transparency, accountability, of these processes and institutions are very important for having a good governance in managing or in proceeding and carry out those mandates of those regional bodies. So actually, those regional political and institutional processes and outcomes that are necessary to achieve the goals of the development, it is really the true test of good governance. Is the degree to which it delivers on human rights, civil rights, cultural and economic, political and social rights, is the key question. Are the institutions of governance effectively guaranteeing the right to health, adequate housing, sufficient food, quality of education, fair justice, personal security for all people under its jurisdiction? And that was being mentioned actually by listing all the vulnerable groups that are living under within these territories, like migrant workers, domestic workers, women, children, families of those migrant workers are very important to be counted for those policies. So actually, what we have here as an important regional body, we also have a human rights instrument that's been established a few years ago to cover that area of the interlink between good governance and the human rights, which is the Gulf Declaration for Human Rights, which is a main instrument. It's been a huge development from the previous document, which assure the equality before the law, the basic rights, the freedoms for people living in this area. However, I mean, bringing examples from the region, like Dr. Sama was mentioning about the African Union and its very, very strong mechanisms in a place, but still it needs a lot of work. So actually, I would say that, I mean, this is a real good foundation for developing more instruments, more mechanisms that turn this instrument, the Gulf Declaration for Human Rights, into a true vehicle assuring or delivering human rights in a way for all. So that's, I mean, maybe looking back on the Asian example, on the European example, they have like different examples, but still it needs to be developed. Even with the Universal Declaration for Human Rights, this great bill needed a lot of further mechanisms and treaties to enforce those equal rights for human beings. So in this regard, I would not add more, but I'm ready to answer any question because I believe the speakers already covered many of those areas. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Nejib.
Thank you, Dr. Ansam, for reiterating the key role of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. And I think it's more urgent to link to the official and public institutions in this part of the world where we all agree that there is a great need for engaging both the government, civil societies, academia, and all other institutions into the promotion of human rights, not only mindsets, but also through, as was highlighted by Bassett and Ali and all other colleagues, Mariam and Pierrette, education, but education not only behind the walls of schools, as was mentioned by all of you basically, but also education in the street, in the in homes, at homes, and in wherever our children and citizens meet and gather. And there also comes the key role of culture. All the programs in TVs, in theater, movies, and so on and so forth should be, I would say, engaging more seriously into rejecting exclusion, violence, hatred, and all that. Thank you again, Madam, and if I hope there are a few comments or few follow-up ideas. I open the floor to all of you, and I know it took us now 1.5 hours. It's basically lunchtime for many people, and if we don't see any hands raised, we understand that the message has been conveyed, and this is not the last shot. I hope this will augur to a very long term partnership. I will discuss with Bassett, with Ali, with Mariam, Pierrette, and Sam, how to go for practical steps after this one. And as my friend Pierrette said, we don't want to go fast, otherwise we'll go alone. We'll try to go far, therefore we have to go together. On this note, I'd like to thank all my speakers and our guests, Excellency Ali Ahmed Al-Dirazi from the Bahrain High Human Rights Institution, Abdel Bassett bin Hassan, President of the Arab Institute for Human Rights, Miriam Sfair, Director of the Arab Institute for Women, Lebanese American University, Pierrette Sama, Program Coordinator at Pan-African University Institute in Cameroon, and last but not least, Ansam Abiyashi, Regional Gender Advisor at the Office of the Human Rights, the High Commission for Human Rights. I'd like also to thank here, particularly Dalia, Eliza, and Soraya from IPI for having worked hard to bring us together. And I wish you all the best. And like Maggie said from the US Embassy, let's make every day a Human Rights Day. Thank you so much. مع السلامة. شكرا جزيلا.